We're joined by the Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. Good morning to you, Treasurer. Thanks for your time.
Good to be with you, Mel.
First of all, let me just ask you about that issue, which is still really an issue for Labor. Any last-minute changes, decisions to include those 1.1 million short-term casuals in the JobKeeper payment?
We'll be putting the legislation to the Parliament as we've previously announced. That means it's a $1,500 flat payment for part-time workers, for full-time workers, for casuals who have been connected to their employer for 12 months or more, for sole traders and for not-for-profit organisations. See, Madeleine, this is a program at $130 billion. It's unprecedented in its scale and its scope, and around 6 million workers should be able to use this program to stay in a job and to keep the connection with their employer, which will help build that bridge to the recovery on the other side.
But does that inequity of that worry you? So people who are on short-term contracts, so many in the arts industries, as we know, 1.1 million Australians will only be able to get job seeker at a lesser rate. But someone who might have done a shift in a bakery once a week for 4 years, earning $250 a fortnight, they can now get $1,500.
Well, there's a couple of points I'd make. Firstly, we've provided additional support to businesses based on the size of their wages roll, and that includes payments of between $20,000 and $100,000 to hundreds of thousands of businesses. So they'll have access to this money to help meet the wages bill of some of those casuals that you've referred to. At the same time, the job seeker payment has also is also very substantial, and we've effectively doubled the size of the safety net. There's also the ability for people to work a little while they're also on that job seeker program. So we believe it's a very fair system that we've laid out. It's a very substantial system. It's a very generous system, but it does reflect the significant economic challenge that the country faces at this time,
well,
and that's why we've gone ahead with it.
Sorry to interrupt, but it certainly is very generous. But to that point, someone who has been working and maybe getting $500 a fortnight is now going to be able to access $1,500 paid for by the taxpayer. Is that fair?
I think it's very Australian to ensure that it's a flat payment and no one is getting paid more because they're on a higher income. As you know, some of the schemes overseas adopted that approach. What we have tried to do is adopt an approach which has a flat payment, which uses the existing tax system, which will be much more efficient and effective to implement, and will get the money into people's pockets sooner rather than later.
Can I just ask you about unemployment? We've seen various predictions from various economists, the RBA warning about it yesterday. With the implementation of this job seeker payment now, do you actually have a projection for what you think unemployment is going to get to over the coming months?
Look, there's no definite number on that because things are still very fluid. Obviously, the health restrictions that were put in place have had a severe economic impact, but we've pulled out all stops to do what we can to keep people in a job, and maintaining that formal connection between employer and employee is going to be really important, and that's why this legislation is so important. I mean, today is one of the most important days in the history of the Australian Parliament as we come together across the political divide to save millions of Australian jobs.
Just on that, a lot of our viewers are very concerned about the fact that this is going to be the last day of Parliament sitting for 4 months. How are you going to be able to work this? Surely there is a technological way of making it work so that we can have adequate oversight for these huge spending plans that are being implemented.
Well, of course there's oversight, and we've supported the establishment of a Senate committee.
Sure, there is a Senate committee, but not parliamentary oversight, Treasurer.
Well, the Senate's in the Parliament the last time I looked. I mean, the point is we are obviously putting all the information out there that comes to hand, and the Prime Minister made that very clear in his statement yesterday after National Cabinet. I mean, this is truly a national crisis that we face, an economic and a health crisis simultaneously. It's effectively like fighting a war on two fronts, and I believe that the Australian people are with us as we go forward. The Parliament will meet as required to pass important legislation, just as we did a few weeks ago.
Just a final question. As Treasurer, you're presiding over spending of $214 billion in 1 month. That's one for the CV.
It's not something I was looking to put on my CV.
I'm sure it's not. Two questions. The Prime Minister said that he wants this to roll back after 6 months. One, how do you know that's going to be enough time? And two, how are you actually going to do it?
Well, in terms of the legislation, there's sunset clauses that are in place, but clearly the measures will be rolled back when it is safe to do so, in terms of the health advice that's coming to us and the subsequent economic impact that it's having. I mean, what we are absolutely focused on is getting the support to people who need it most, and we've had effectively 3 separate packages, Madeleine, of support measures. They've all been different in nature and in scale and in scope. Obviously, today's legislation and the JobKeeper payment is the most significant, but we'll do what is necessary, but we'll also continue to take the best possible medical advice.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on a busy day for you, Treasurer.
Thank you.